This small house in Winchester, Virginia, opened its doors to the public in August. It was home to one of America's most beloved female vocalists, who died at age 30.
Crazy, I'm crazy for feeling.
Patsy Cline's greatest hits album has sold more than 10 million copies. She lived here with her family from the age of 16 to 21. Judy Sue Hewitt-Kempf is director of the Patsy Cline Historic House.
When she moved here, she was singing in local talent contests, church functions, anything that she could find at that point.
That piano she got when she was 8 years old.
Patsy's first cousin, Patricia Brannon, gives tours of the house. She was 6 years younger than Patsy and frequently visited when she was a child.
Her mom and her sister and a brother and herself. Was 4 of them. There was not a whole lot of money like everybody else. It was hard times.
Brannon's childhood memories helped restore the house as it was in the late 1940s. She is pleased that Winchester is finally honoring her cousin, almost 50 years after her death in a plane crash.
They all said that she was born on the wrong side of town. But when they purchased the house and they restored it, I think that was one of the best things that happened.
There are other tributes to Patsy Cline in Winchester. Her grave has attracted visitors for years. But Hewitt-Kempf says fans have been waiting for this recognition.
This is the Patsy history. This is it. I mean, this is where she lived, where she walked, where she ate, where she slept. We can only allow 20 people at a time in the house because the house is very small. And in the first 5 days, we did over 600 people.
Babe Ruth is considered one of the greatest baseball players in history. He was born in this house in Baltimore, Maryland.
Ruth was born here in 1895, February 6th.
Mike Gibbons is executive director of the Babe Ruth Birthplace and Museum. He says Ruth was the first sports superstar.
He's the first guy who ever had a sports agent. He's the first guy who ever was used to promote retail goods.
Ruth's birthplace was scheduled to be demolished in the 1960s. It was rescued and restored by Baltimore residents and has been open to the public for almost 40 years.
With this house, we give them plenty of opportunities to touch where Babe Ruth, walked around. Now, he did not live here, but this was his grandparents' house. So he was in and out of this house for the first 7 years of his life.
Because the city saved 3 adjoining houses, there is plenty of room for artifacts tracing Ruth's life, from childhood baseball games with this mitt to his early career in Baltimore and beyond to celebrity. But not every historic home has that luxury. This house, the oldest in Baltimore, was home to Edgar Allan Poe, one of America's most famous writers. Poe is mostly known for his scary poems and stories. Jeff Jerome is curator of Poe's house.
We believe he lived here 1832 to 1835. He was around 25 years old at that time when he lived here, and he shared this small house with his 2 cousins, Henry and Virginia, his Aunt Maria Clem, and his grandmother.
Poe's attic bedroom is furnished as historians believe it was when the writer lived there.
He probably, of course, had a bed, very similar to the one that we have. He had a chair, a washstand, and maybe a small table.
A few objects are on display in other rooms, but there isn't room for much. And after next June, the house could be closed to the public.
The city of Baltimore cut funding to the Poe House. We are now surviving off of funds that I've raised through the Poe birthday celebration, Halloween at the Poe House.
Poe is also buried in Baltimore. He died here under mysterious circumstances at the age of 40. Jerome says people travel halfway around the world to visit his grave and the house.
We had a young lady, 16 years old, that came here from China with her father, and she said she was a poet. I allowed her to sit in a chair that belonged to Edgar Allan Poe, and she started crying, saying, "I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy to sit in his chair."
He hopes that others won't be denied the opportunity to visit the house. Susan Logue, VOA News, Baltimore, Maryland.
When I look at him other museums, I know full well when I go there and